Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome. I'm glad everybody's starting to tune in there. Denise, we got Sean, Moon at Noon. Welcome there. Rebecca, Gary Spike Sr., Paranormal Pixie. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's see, Liana's coming in. Hello there, Liana. Henry, welcome. And everybody starting to tune in. Tracy, how are you doing today? Welcome, everybody.
I'm doing fantastic, Grizzly. Everything's going well. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, doing great. Round of applause to everybody. So, yes, thank you for tuning in. So, I am packing and charging all of my equipment for the field trip this weekend for a Bigfoot expedition. So, yes, I'm getting everything ready. Yes.
You got any... Well, what are you taking with you, Grizz? Just out of curiosity, some of the top things for you.
My nice, good cameras, some ghost balls, some EMF detectors, some pig attractant, some apples. No, I'm not taking that. But no, I just got all my recording equipment and stuff, so I'm ready. So I'm just charging everything up, flashlights and all that good stuff.
I hope you catch them. I hope you catch something on camera, buddy.
There ain't no telling what we're gonna catch. So, so today, everybody, we have a special guest that you all know. This person from in our chat room. This person goes by Skywalker, and I will not tell. I don't know why I'm lagging. So yes, but we'll go ahead and bring her in. Skywalker, come on down. Welcome to the show.
Hi,
how are you doing?
I'm Skywalker Schadenfreude.
Yeah, so let me blow you up here. So yeah, introduce yourself and tell everybody all about what you do and everything.
Thank you, Grizzly. It's so good to be here. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I am a MUFON investigator in Northeast Florida. I'm an experiencer. I am an ancestor venerator, tarot card reader. I'm an INFJ, which is a personality type that's known to be intuitive. And I have a background in psychology. So I use my background in psychology, my telepathy, and to try to explain the unexplainable.
And interesting.
And I have a profound triangle UFO story that I believe is a larger part of my testimony. So that's what motivated me to come onto your show and tell my story. Hearing other stories and move on is crucial in this field.
Yeah, and we tell everybody that's listening, whether it's by video or audio, that everybody's welcome to come on our show. Ain't that right, Tracy?
Yes, sir. Yep. We don't turn anybody down. Don't mean it that way. Don't get me wrong. We are very interested in what people have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's saying welcome, Skywalker. Everybody's like, welcome to the show. So yes, welcome, Kathy A. But yeah, so Tracy, where do you want to start?
And not having a lot of stuff online is what brought me to MUFON. And so that's why I like to share the story, because if it helps somebody else fill in a puzzle piece, then great.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca is asking you, Skywalker, what is an ancestor venerator?
That was going to be my first question.
It's a type of medium, but I tend to only be communicating with people I've had a connection with or my ancestors. So I don't get a lot of strangers, spirits to communicate. Sometimes like maybe a missing person case or something, it will call to me and I will get something. But most of the time it's ancestral.
Interesting. Yes, I've actually heard of that. I didn't know much about it. So yes, have you ever heard of it, Tracy?
No, never have. That's a great question. That was the first one I was going to ask. We have had people on before that talk about experiences with what they feel are their ancestors and stuff. I think what we had on last week, she had believed that her grandfather was someone that had visited her in the past. So what I'm trying to ask the right question here. What advice would you give to people that trying to figure out if they, number one, we know that if they know they're a medium, they know they're a medium, right? They're feeling things, seeing things, whatever. But what advice would you give to them to make sure that it's just an ancestor thing, right? I mean, it would only be people that would be they're related to throughout the past. But like for you, how do you know that maybe someone from a long time ago is your ancestor?
Mm-hmm. So I've been doing this since I was a little girl. For example, I never met my grandmother Velma ever. She passed away before. And of course, my mom talked about her and told me many stories of her. So I was allowed to, you know what I mean, explore that. And I wasn't said, you're crazy, or, you can't do that. And my grandmother Velma was a very spiritual person, loved Jesus. And so my mom used to say to me, because she wanted to teach me the right thing, you can't really pray to them, but you can ask them to intervene on your behalf with Jesus. So I was always talking to Grandma Velma, and I lived 2 blocks from the cemetery. So I would go sit on their grave and just talk to them all day, kind of in my way. They were just there looking over me all the time. And then I noticed as people started to pass on, it wouldn't be very long that I would feel their presence and just know and start getting signs. And so I like to say, though, like sometimes people in the world will want you to doubt yourself. And so I just encourage you to believe. So there was a long time in my life where I thought it was silly, or I was an atheist. If I caught myself praying, I would stop praying right then and go, that's silly and childish. And that's, people trying to manipulate you. But then once I got older and more mature and I actually read the Bible and started to trust and open my mind, I started to realize that the supernatural feels very natural. So it doesn't feel like a big bang or a pow or anything. It's supernatural. So I just started to let it happen. And I mean, there are things where you can ask, but my type of telepathy, it's not just like words or voices. Empathy is a type of clairvoyance, right? So when they come around, I feel it like a relation or a comfort or a home. And I trust that because it's for so long, 20, 30, 40 years, it has never led me wrong. So
while we're discussing the family, reading your bio here about your family history, you have ties to Susan B. Anthony, the Knight Templars, a Long Hunter, and Freemasons. Can you discuss a little bit about that?
Okay, let me see if I don't want to get, too long, but so I knew like my grandfather was a Shriner and he went to the Elks Club and grandma went to the Does, but I didn't really know what that was because they did not kind of show it, or preach it to me or anything. I think I know the secret handshake because I think it was a fun game when I was little. So after I saw the triangle sighting and I started to get this just information, I got my DNA test and found out I was related to Susan B. Anthony on my mother's side. And then my mom had collected all this ancestry files she sorted it and didn't put it together. And finally I had it, I think, for like 5 years before I even took it out and looked at it because I just didn't think there was going to be anything in it. My great grandfather wrote a book 100 years ago and I published it on Amazon. And he had moments too where, like, for example, his sisters, he was born in an orphanage, never knowing his parents. His sisters got sent to Canada. There was a woman named Maria Ray something who helped like hundreds of thousands of orphans go to nice homes to work there, like in Canada. So never knew his sisters, but after he was a sea fisherman and they said, you can either stay here or we'll give you some money and drop you off wherever you want to go. And he said, I want to go find my sisters. So he gets there, he's in a town. The circus was there by the train station that day, but everybody's packing up. This is before telephones or anything. He still hasn't found his sisters. He has no money, like a little bit, in a country he doesn't know. He said, it's silly. It sounds silly, but something in my mind told me to turn around. And when I did, there was a woman far off in the distance waving, going, come back here. And that was his sisters. So, and then, then I go and I'm listening to a tarot card reader, and all of a sudden tarot cards are starting to really resonate with me. Like I'll just have it on TV and I'll go, whoa, he's talking about me. And he's going, somebody's here. Both grandparents are both of your grandparents were grandmasters. I can feel it. I can feel it. I was like, is he talking about me and other things? So I go look at the beaches, like Freemasons Club at the beach that I knew my granddad, kind of went to for whatever Elks Club had stuff. And there was my mother's grandfather and my father's grandfather.
Wow.
Or father. My mom's father in 1985 and my dad's father. So that was the son of the man who came from England as an orphan. So, well, he ended up building, he was a foreman on the railroad here and built the railroad bridge that goes across the river here. So the triangle shape, though, of the ship and the Freemasons, I started to see, like, I was like, oh, well, wow, this is all too, what I mean? Like coincidental. And then also found out in my DNA that I had a lot of Denmark, Sweden, Finnish, Scottish, Welsh. And then I started to find out cases of like the 1561 Nuremberg, Germany sighting of the, kind of the celestial war in the sky and the manuscript. And then the Relhem, I can't say it, but the Relhem Forest in England, the triangle ship. So I'm wondering, and when I had my sighting, which I'll tell you the story, I just felt related. Like these were somebody looking over me that was related to me. Then I started getting all the information.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then once I knew like that I was related to Susan B. Anthony and stuff, like I don't feel alone. And then it was like, oh, well, sometimes I can feel her around and, I'll be like, oh, cousin Susie didn't like that. You know what I mean? or the cousin Susan in me. That's why I've been unconventional and, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. That was going to be my next question for you, was about if you had ever felt the presence of Susan B. Anthony or any of those other people that your grandfather wrote about as well.
Yeah.
So that's cool. If you have that's awesome.
So like, for example, I knew before DNA ever came out that I was more like my dad than my mom. I could tell, and I could tell that I was like half of them, and I could pull from the traits of my mom if I needed, or I could be like cool, calm, and collected like my dad. But then when I got my DNA test, it confirmed that. It said that 75% of my traits were on my dad's side. So like you can feel that,
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then I'll tell you one that kind of confirmed it to me that, so I had a friend named Brandon Highland here where I live, and he was unfortunately unalived at a very young age. And we had hung out, we were friends. I mean, he was 16, we were young. And I remember we went down to St. Augustine because I live close to St. Augustine, and we had a little day there, and he bought me this little green bottle. Well, I hold on to that little green bottle forever. So 20 years later, I'm thinking of Brandon, and I don't know where my little green bottle is because I like really took care of it and held on to it because he's no longer with us. So I'm watching, I know John Edwards, right? But see, I feel like these messages can come through in any way with anybody, even if they're a fake sometimes, you know what I mean? So he said something about feathers are a way that the people that passed over can communicate with you.
That is correct.
I look to my right on the shelf and there's a big feather because we like to collect them. I used to make quill pins out of them. I'd stand up, walk over there, move the feather, and if that little green bottle's not sitting right behind it.
Oh,
and
wow.
I've just been thinking of them.
Crazy.
So stuff
That's
like that happens to me all the time. And I just go with it. It's not like I do it. It does it to me. So.
Can you explain, you state that you use clairvoyance and remote viewing to explore the unexplained. Could you explain what that means?
So there's a lot of forms of clairvoyance. I think maybe the only one I don't have yet is telekinesis, where you can move objects with your mind and stuff. But it is like it encompasses. So it also has to do with the INFJ. So that's a personality type. It's introverted, intuitive, feeling judging person. So all that means is like I have these extra sensors. Like sometimes I'm both. I'm extroverted and introverted. So that's what makes us kind of hard to figure out. So I don't just see, hear, smell, and taste. I recognize patterns, high correlations. But I get these, I'll think of somebody or get an image and see them like the next day. So when I'm doing and thinking about stuff, it just comes in many different ways. So I might feel it. I might get a mental image. I might, so I can't help but use it because it's just the way that I kind of sense the world. Is the way I just perceive it.
Interesting.
So, and so we have a buddy, Chris Harmon, who helped hone. I had learned all of this stuff when I picked up a book in the library when I was about 13. It was called Way of the Witch with Lori Cabot. And I remember being scared because it was a book of witchcraft, but I was calling to me, I already felt like this stuff was like in me, the like kind of Celtic druid. So, but I had my Christian background, and then I get invited to a Catholic church and I see the preacher up there doing these like rituals, and I go, oh, okay, so it's okay as long as I pray to Jesus when I do it. So,
Right.
and so when I took his class, he taught me some more skills, but I had found that I had already been practicing this stuff because when I read that book, I had not just read it, but practiced each one and continued to my whole life. And it taught me about manifesting from a very early age, even to get a parking spot. That's how I do it.
People do not believe how that actually works, and it's real. It really is. And people with abilities will tell you, have a manifestation book, have a manifestation list, and put it underneath your pillow before you go to bed. And it does work. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, don't hear it from me. It works. Now, I have a couple of questions. And the reason why I'm going to ask this is because, welcome, Shelby, welcome, Mort, is I know how this works. And I just want to see if she had the same thing that happened to me when I took psychology. So the answer is, how was it when you first took the class?
Okay, so, well, this is the mystery school part I'm telling you about, because when I was young, I was different than I felt like all my other family members. And I questioned that, like, why do people do what they do? So I found my dad's like 101 psychology book. He got drafted in the army, got stationed in Persimmons, Germany. He was the guy that deciphered radio messages that were in the alpha beta. So when he came home, he got a VA, went to college, and he had this psychology, and I read it front to back. So then I go to school for psychology and I get my psychology degree. But in the 70s and 80s, they were teaching Freudian stuff and different things. When I went, they would have laughed at you. They would have taught you Freud, but they would have laughed at you if you would have taken any of that kind of like stuff seriously, like Carl Jung or any of that. Right. Now it's making a comeback, but anybody that went to psychology school didn't get that 60s, 70s, 80s psychology. I did. I got both of them.
So when I took mine, and I had, welcome, Catherine. I had problems. And the reason why I had problems is that what people go through and what they teach you and how you have to diagnose and treat and figure things out. And I was like, Professor, but what if? And he was like, Grizzly, take the class. But Professor, what if? Grizzly, take the class. And I kept questioning things because we know beyond a reasonable doubt what we know what's in that textbook and what we are being taught is not reality. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that not the truth?
Well, psychology was my jam. I was into it. So it was like I totally get it. The terminology. I had trouble when I took a philosophy class and they were doing nothing, but that was good because it rounded me out.
That makes sense as well, right?
But I had trouble because I was like, wait, I'm trying to find the answer. Let's do an experiment. They're like, no, it's just a question. And I was like, what do you mean? I need answers. And then I took like medieval art history and I couldn't understand the terminology. I could understand big psychology words in medical journals in the library, but I started taking medieval history and I was like, oh my goodness, And now It's so funny because, now I'm learning about my ancestry was a part of that time when the art and everything, was so it,
Right.
we studied, I think it was 80 BC to 1100 AD. So,
Okay. Yeah.
hmm so, so the triangle sighting, that I believe that it was tied in with the spiritual, because I told you, I had been an atheist for 10 years. And but I felt like that was necessary. It was almost like part of the journey, like, so I wouldn't be so confirmation biased, or I didn't even know like what to pray for yet. You know what I mean? Like, and after being an atheist for so long and believing, it was really authentic and genuine.
How big was the triangle, and what did it look like?
Okay, so here's what happened. So it was June 11th, 2022 at 10:30 in the morning. And I didn't tell anyone or report it to MUFON for a whole year later. But that happened to be the day before my sister's birthday, and she had passed away about a year before. And I was getting ready to go to a concert of a band that I knew she liked that I wasn't really into, but it happened to be during the pink full moon, and I had liked one song that came out. And so I went, and I was going, and I wanted to get some extra money, so I was out Ubering. And I like to start out in the morning at like 4 in the morning, because I get like an airport trip, and it's just a better crowd. So I had an airport trip, but I got one person out there, but then the rest of the trips got canceled. So I'd be traveling, and then as soon as I get close, it get canceled. And I was just having like the worst day. But I had just started, I was having a rough time in life, and I was willing to like open my mind again and give the Jesus thing a chance again, right? So I caught a preacher on TV, and the first thing that was about, like, I just caught it, and I was like, well, I'll sit down and give it a try, because it was somebody I listened to when I was young. And they taught me that Jesus was a gentleman, and that if you wanted, you had to invite him, because he's not like a demon. He's not just going to possess you without asking or your consent. And I thought, well, this is silly, but I'll do the prayer, and I'll just ask him to come aboard and help me. And boy, as soon as I did, things just, you know what I mean? And then learning the lessons, like to trust and the faith and so that happened. And then I'm doing this, going to the concert, and I'm having the worst day, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to take this one more and keep a good attitude and go home. So I get this one, it's from Wawa, and I go to this really nice gated neighborhood. I mean, it's beautiful. And I had taken computer aided drafting, so I love architecture and all that. Must be in my bloodline from the Freemasons and stuff. Yeah. So I love angles and stuff. So so I'm going to deliver the food, and it's a beautiful home, and I'm admiring it. I'm like, this is a nice home. I'd love to have a home like this. I'd love to manifest this home. I'm going to do that when I, as soon as I get done. So I'm walking up, and there's like a peak on the roof where you go through, and then it's a long corridor to the door. And all of a sudden, the way the triangle, so here's the peak of the house. The triangle kind of comes over the peak. He's only like 100 feet, but I can see through it. It's got clouds all through it. So I can see through it, and I kind of see the outline and where lights would be, the 3 lights. But I can totally see through it. Like one of those fancy cell phones that came out where you could reflect the top to the bottom, so it looked like you could see through it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it was doing. And I didn't know the word for it yet, because I was like, okay. So I look up, and I can, so my view is only, I'm looking up, and there's the peak. So it's going over, and I kind of do this, and I look one more time to see if something's still moving. And I see like the can lights go over, and I'm like, no, it's not happening. I'm just tired. You know what I mean? So I'm like, then I think about, this is a nice neighborhood. I bet they got a ring cam, and they're watching me with their food, like looking up at the sky, like she's crazy, like just give me my food. So I'm like, I better deliver this food. So I put the food down on the step, and then you got to take a picture of it, right? So for a minute, I was like, let me if there's something there, I'm going to get a picture of it. But then I look up, and I'm under the corridor, so I can't, get a picture of it. I think I'm silly, like it's not going to be there when I'm done. And the picture would disappear anyway, unless I got like a quick screenshot. It would go to the customer and they'd be like, why is she getting a picture of the sky? You know what I mean? So I was like, let me scratch that idea, right? And let me just get this done. So I'm going to, when I walk out, it's not going to be there. It's just a fluke, right? So I walk out of the long corridor. I'm like, it is a beautiful day. It's almost 11 o'clock. I'm going to clock off. I'm going to take my money and go home. And if I look up and if it ain't still there and it's high and far away and it's just sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, that's neat. And then I feel like maybe there's a lot of people in there. And I was thinking, well, there could be 30, 300, 3,000 people in there. And I feel like they're all, I don't see them, but I feel like they're looking from the side and they're, you know, like they know me, like they're doing a drive-by or a visit. But I'm like, oh no, this is just what I need. Now I'm calling my psychiatrist as soon as I get home because now I'm seeing things, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I shake it off. Yeah. I shake it off and I'm like, nope. And I put my head down. I start walking to my car on the sidewalk. I'm like, I hope this doesn't like go on forever. I hope it's a one-time thing. I feel it. I don't see it, but I feel it go like behind me. Like, wait a minute, where are you going? It's for real, right? So he goes behind me to the other side. And I look up because the car's here and I look up and it's a little bit closer now. And then just sitting there. Well, first of all, when it went behind my head to follow me, to be like, no, don't leave. It's for real. It didn't turn. It just changed which arrow, I guess, was going forward, right? So it's got the arrow and it went that way, straight out. And then it just, from this side, it just went that way, right? But then when it got here, it turned really slow. And I want to say it's completely silent. So when I got out of the car, it was a Saturday and I've been delivering flowers and food my whole life. And I noted in my own head, I went, really? Not a dog barking? Not anybody? So I thought everybody in this neighborhood's got so much money they can afford to sleep in real late on Saturday, I guess. But now I think about it, no birds, nothing, right? So he's over here and he turns like, and I'm like, okay, he's still there. And he's still like, I know the word is cloaking now. So I look at my camera and I go, should I get a picture of this? And then I get this thought, like, I've been seeing a lot of people, like, they'll provoke somebody and then throw a camera up in their face. Right. And I was like, no, that might be rude to my new friend. I'm not going to tell anybody anyway, because they're going to think I'm crazy. So why get a picture? And so I put it down and then I actually like waved. Like, and that's when the like telepathy hit me. And the telepathy says, I know you won't tell them you saw me. I was like, no, I'm cool. I won't say nothing. And I was like, but who? Right? And then I get a vision and I know that I'm not here. I know he's showing me a vision to answer my question. So I see this like the close up of like, looks like the Agent Smith from the Matrix, right? And I'm waiting though for him to turn his head. I'm actually in my vision trying to look around his head to see if he's got the glasses and the suit, but he doesn't have the thing, right? So I'm like, oh, well, that's not Agent Smith. Who is this? And then I get a vision of me walking along this like wall that's glass and it's like glowing. It's like a white glass light room. And I'm like, this is nice office, could use some decor, but and this Agent Smith guy is sitting at the table and I'm sitting on a chair and I know I'm just seeing the vision. And I didn't get asked the question, but this guy was like, no, you know what I mean?
No expressions.
Like, no expressions or anything. And I felt like he was a hologram, just like to show me who I wasn't supposed to tell. So then I knew that he was already interrogating me. He didn't say like, did you see him? But I was just like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I'm back on the sidewalk. And then I'm like, look up, he's still there. And then he goes away, like, he goes, I think he goes northeast over the tree line. So he's about 50 feet. and just still cloaking and dead silent. And then it's done. So I'm like, okay, should I call my family? I'm like, nope, they're going to have me admitted or so they're not going to believe me. So I'm just going to try to figure this out. I go to Sprouts and I get some like spring rolls and I eat in the car. I go home. I go about my day. I have a dream that night that I visit and nothing's there. And then I wake up thinking it's all a dream and then find the spring rolls in my refrigerator. So I'm like, I did have this happen and it wasn't a dream, but I didn't tell anybody for like a year. And I looked online. I couldn't find hardly anything about it. So I finally did tell MUFON. All these journal articles started coming out, like, you know, about that was a cloaking when it was invisible and that they're silent. And then Chris Harmon confirmed that they do sometimes have normal looking eyes, but they wear glasses because the sunlight, you know, like it could have been a gray, but there was also a article about the Hat Man, and he comes in 3 forms. And one of them is like a shadowy figure. One of them is like, and one of them is like just Hat Man with the hat, and one of them looks like the Men in Black. But when I came into MUFON, I knew nothing. And when my chief was like, oh, it's like the Men in Black theory, I was like, oh, I love that movie. Yeah. Will Smith's great. He knew that I didn't know what he's talking about. And so, you know, but more things keep getting confirmed. So,
wow.
But that's what happened. Yeah. Oh, and my Uber app said that the reason that I couldn't find the trip at first is because it said 3:59 a.m. All the other trips were in order and right on time, but apparently I ended it at 10:59, but the app says 3:59 a.m. So I'm not in this gated community. My chief later, after I'm an investigator and I've done some cases, says he wants to give it more attention. Well, I'm like, I can't get back into the neighborhood to really give you the address or the Northwest, how it went. Wouldn't you know that my neighbor that lived across the street bought a new house? I didn't know where it was. And the day before I'm supposed to tell my chief more information, he sends me a housewarming party invite to the very plot that this happened over, because there were no houses there. They were just being built. So he bought a brand new house. And so I got to go back and see the address and the land and which way it came in and really do, you know.
That's wild. So something didn't happen because your app documented that you lost time somehow.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So that is interesting.
And it was like day before. Oh, and then I will go to the concert on the pink full moon. And, you know, it took us a while to go through my sister's stuff, but I felt like she was taking me to this concert for her birthday in the kind of other side, you know. I felt her presence with me, and we actually have a better relationship now, sadly. Like, she's more of like an essence of what she would have been if she hadn't had things going on, you know.
Right.
But we go through her stuff like maybe 6-7 months later when we finally feel like we can, and we find these music journals of all these songs that she likes, and this band is all in it. She loved it. And so that confirmed to me that, yeah, she wanted me to go to that concert.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. So, yeah. And just gives some validity to your encounter, right? Because anytime that we hear people tell their story, like you say, it's like, did it really happen? You know, am I dreaming this? You know, you got the spring rose right in the fridge. However, is when you go back and look at your map of your tracking of your daily logs, you cannot alter that. That's automatically out of your control. You cannot add or subtract from that. Just like dispatch, when they send us to calls, you know, on the police department, we can't add or subtract dates or times from that. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. And then my life, I can't remember now if it was slightly before or slightly after, but I did have something removed from my leg. I believe it was slightly before. Now, I didn't think about this the other day until it was aching on my leg from the total eclipse. It was aching. This is a year later or something. The doctor took it out and then it got infected. I had to go back. And she said, I'm so sorry. I would have put you on antibiotics, but I thought it was something else. And when I took it out, I found out it wasn't what I thought it was. And I said, well, what was it? And she's like, Well, it wasn't what I thought it was, and it's usually found on the neck or the head. And then I see like Ancient Aliens, and it was Aiken the other day, and I kind of put two and two together. That's also a very common thing that happens with the
She
triangle
didn't know
stuff.
what it was.
That's what she said. And I didn't think at the time to ask. I didn't know about this stuff, people having implants and stuff like that, and triangle
Right.
sightings being a high correlation. Not
Did
saying
she
it,
call it a cyst or something, or did she just?
that's what she thought it was at first. And then she said, well, she didn't give me an answer. She said it wasn't a cyst. And I go, well, what's it? Because I want to know, is it cancerous? Well, usually I find them on the head or the neck. Now, I remember
Wow.
her I got a vibe off of her. She had some really beautiful strawberry blonde hair. It was tight curls and these green eyes, and she was very tall and kind of pale. And I got like, this is a remarkable woman. And she might have been spiritual or
Right.
from out of this
Right.
world, So, but yeah,
That's
I lost
interesting.
40 pounds. I brought my cholesterol down. I lifted my depression and anxiety on my own without medicine after this sighting. And I don't know, I felt like my great grandfather was in there. This before I published his book. I just felt that. I even said, like, Jesus, is this you? Is that your ship, Jesus? And so that was just a feeling I got. Not scared at all.
Well, we actually have heard people that have instances where they had some type of contact. They don't know, and it's angelic to a certain degree. However, like you say, their medical condition mysteriously has improved, and the person or the doctors medically cannot understand why, because I don't say food intake hasn't changed or their medicines have not changed, right? Because usually if your eating habits change, your cholesterol change and everything else. And so it's very interesting. It
And
really
I didn't try too hard. I just went like mainly meatless because I'd started learning about Gnostic beliefs and how to increase your frequency. And one of them was to, just kind of lay off the red meat and stuff, just as a humanitarian, a high vibe thing. And I did that. I was, went mainly meatless and changed to like oat milk and stuff and just started feeling miraculously better, So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I don't know. I had more self-efficacy, more self-esteem. I started to not ever feel alone and get these messages that I not only have like myself with me, but Jesus and all my spirit guides. I'm like not scared of anyone, like, so.
Very interesting. What do you think about the paranormal field?
So I think that they could be thought forms. The psychology side of me says that it's a concentrated form of like energy that, and then, I believe in maybe ghosts and spirits with the family thing. So, and maybe that some people need to be helped to cross over, that they might be confused in that, so, I think we're all light beings, really just like, or a lighthouse.
Yes.
So, and my mom just passed away, and look, her little radio, I inherited her little truck and I drove it to see her at the hospital. The radio didn't work for years. And me and my daughter jump in the car and that sucker starts up on the way to go see her. And my daughter even was like, oh, hey, there's grandma. I think my mom messed with me for like a week before she passed on. That week was like she was in and out and I was missing things and snakes were in my house and it was weird things were happening, storms. And I just felt like she was going, hey, cheese, it's me. And that she knew she was going before like we did. She would tell us. So, yeah.
No, absolutely.
And the other day I was driving down the street and I'm thinking of my mom out of the blue driving, thinking, and my daughter goes, hey, is grandma around us? Because I feel her right. I'm thinking of her right now. Right. So she's doing it too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people those are small indicators, right? That they are giving you small messages that, that they are present and around you. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very comforting. And so.
When you saw the triangle, did you happen to say what color it was?
Well, it was like clear. So I just tried to describe the borders and I would have said it was like a metallic misty liquid, like a liquid mercury in little droplets, sort of all around. I can't explain that. It's not like a hologram.
But like you
know?
said, you learned it might have been cloaking, huh?
Yeah, that was the word that I finally told my like closest friend who knew more about, played video games and stuff like that.
Right.
And it was invisible. And he's like, you mean cloaking? And I'm like, is that the word for it? And I still try to find information on Triangle sightings that say that they do that. But there's not much. There's like maybe, for me, I only found like maybe 3, the one that the Pentagon filmed and of the, so.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, that's cool. What are your thoughts? Grizzly, you just covered the paranormal. What are your thoughts on the cryptids outside of UFOs?
Okay, so Grizzly knows that after this happened and I opened my mind again, I started remembering things that happened to me when I was young, when I lived on St. George Island. And like I had night terrors, really bad night terrors. I was visited by the Hat Man. Well, he was in the looking like the Grim Reaper coming through the window, floaty version then. And then, so you know how I love technology and I feel like they can also work through the technology. We had a satellite bigger than our house, but we only got like 2 channels. And I remember watching Sesame Street, loved Sesame Street. And I remember Big Bird talked about he was having nightmares and how you could control your dreams and you could fight the monsters in your dreams off. And so he helped me learn to do that. And I started doing that. So when the Hat Man came into my room that night, I just went, like, you can go now. You know what I mean? Like, because I was practicing that. And, but also I felt for maybe a couple nights in a row when I was playing out in the woods, and I told Grizzly this, that there was a trail out to the woods that I thought was mine that I had made over time, but I'm starting to think it might have been a Bigfoot game trail. But I was laying in bed and I had been on the trail like the day before, and there was a snake. I knew to look over logs before you walk over them because snakes like to hide there. So I practiced those kind of things. And I came up on the log that I like to go over, and there was a snake there, and I couldn't remember the rhyme, if it was a coral or a king snake.
Yeah.
And I tell you, man, I just got this. I turned around, ran out the game trail, jumped on my bike, and rode my bike home because I was trying to learn how to ride my bike, and I learned how to ride my bike that day. Like, so, and another morning, I got this like, okay, I used to go to the bathroom. You just wake up, go to the bathroom, right? So this morning, my brain goes, you need to look in the toilet before you sit down. And I went, what brain? That's stupid. I never do. It's fine. But I was like, all right, I'll listen to you. And I look in the toilet, and there's a snake in the toilet.
Oh, wow. So
it had come up the septic tank. But thankfully, my brain maybe my subconscious seen it at the corner of my eye or something. But, So then a couple of nights later, I see in my mind's eye this albino like Bigfoot looking thing. And now I don't have TV. I got 2 channels, and it's soap operas and like adult stuff that I don't watch. So I don't know where I got this idea of a Bigfoot, and it's saying to me, you can't play in the woods anymore. And I'm going, what? Come on, I love it. You can't take that away from me. And he's like, no, you're talking to the snakes and it's not safe. And I was like, well, all right. But I was bummed, But I knew we were moving here because there was 2 hurricanes that came through. And we lived in that house for about a year without power.
Oh, wow.
So we were moving soon to Jacksonville, where I was like 6 generations from. So, yeah.
Wow, that's neat. Yeah, a snake in the toilet got me.
Everybody's saying that. It's like, I don't live out in the country.
It was just a rat snake, but I'm sure he wouldn't have been happy with me sitting on him. So.
Then
I started to remember I saw the cannonball type. So after the hurricanes, we're in the house and there's no power. I'm sitting at the dining room table, probably about 7 years old. And I remember, the memory starts with it just being in a dark room, sitting at the dining room table, like waiting for us to kind of move. And my mom's out on the porch and she's like, you need to come here, come look at this. And I go out there and it's like a peach sky like the big clouds over the Gulf of Mexico. And there's these three, like they look like dark cannonballs, but with fire around them and a tiny tail. And there's three of them. And they're going, then they disappear, and they reappear, and then they go, and they're playing, and they disappear, and they reappear. And we're out there for like 20, 30 minutes. And they're just still, and my mom goes, well, maybe it's ball lightning. And then I get real tired, I remember, and I want to stay out there and watch it, but then I'm going to bed. So I go to bed. And what kind of little 7-year-old ever goes to bed, on their own? So I think they made me tired. But I look up ball lightning, and it don't look like that.
No.
So.
No.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And then the last one was when I was going through another tough time in the home with my sister. And I was just sitting on the back porch, and this like Tic Tac in about 2015 goes by, but it has skis on it, like like a pontoon boat.
Right.
They're going like this way, and the Tic Tac is this way, and the skis are like this. And I'm just like, I watch it silent. There's no propellers, and I'm like, well, that's a fancy new drone or weather barometer.
Huh.
And then when the what's his name, Lewis.
Yes,
Lewis
I think so.
comes out with those videos, and one of them looks like a Tic Tac. So, but that's it so far. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Unbelievable. Everybody's like, I am checking the commode tonight. So very interesting.
Yeah. I hope that anybody else, that's ever had these experiences isn't afraid to just come out and be themselves and tell their story. Because
look, how long did it take you to come out? You said
about a year or so. Yeah, and I kept going back to the memory, and it didn't. I know what it feels like to remember a dream. I know what it feels like to remember a daydream, and this is not in that. This is too real to me. Like it really happened. It's not in those memory categories. You know what I mean? I know the difference. I do it all the time. So that's why this one was like different, and I'm glad it was not like all the time where I feel like I need to go but then, so, I was worried like, oh my gosh, am I schizophrenic? But doing my research on that, there is sort of I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes when you have that, there's like a health decline aspect to it.
Right. Yeah. There's other symptoms.
Or like you can't function or clean your home I'm very fully functioning if I am. And it's the kind that only happens for 5 minutes every 10 years. So I guess I'm fortunate,
Right.
But I don't think that's it. And then I learned about the Harvard professor who almost got fired for Harvard, for doing the UFO research. His name, right. And so then his story was so compelling when he came to his hearing about almost losing his job that they ended up giving him grants to study it further. So,
yes.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
that's why I'm so grateful for places like MUFON and stuff that are private, that you feel like you can come to and tell your story, and you're not going to get judgment or worry about, so.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm fully expecting maybe a visit from the Men in Black after this. I will let you know.
Well, we do. We have attorneys to fight them. We have them on standby. Yes.
Yeah, that's my privacy, and I do not consent.
Watch the show. So. Yeah. But we greatly appreciate you taking the time out, coming on the show. What do you think, Tracy?
It was my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, great interview. Thank you very much. And Grizz is going to ask you for some contact stuff, but your grandpa's book, how can people get a hold of that book?
Well, it's on Amazon. I recommend the Kindle version because the print is a little small on the paperback, but I'll try to make it free for you guys right after this. But the Kindle version is the best. And it's just called My Life by Charles Webb, 1860 to 1929.
Oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm. And what I love about the book is whenever I'm having a bad day, or I feel like I want to complain that life's not so good, all I have to do is crack open that book and read what he went through and how hard his life was. And I go, I really don't have it that bad. I really don't. Because, he was a fisherman on the North Sea at 13, and there were fish that he talks about could bite your foot off. They open the net. There'd be guys with spears to spear them because they would jump at you and just, take a boot off,
Wow.
So, yeah.
And if people want to follow you or reach out to you, is there a way that they can do that for you, or?
Well, I do have my YouTube page at The World's Mine. The World's Mine Oyster. The World's Mine Oyster. And then I have my email right now, which is at Skywalker Schadenfreude at gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, tonight we have JJ Squatchman coming out to talk about his Bigfoot encounters. So coast to coast around the world, we'll see you at 9 o'clock Eastern. Thank you, Skywalker.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody. Mwah.